Hello, my name is Mark Taylor and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place for creative and inspiring learning from around the world. Listen to teachers, parents and mentors share how they are supporting children to live their best authentic life and are proving to be a guiding light to us all. Hello and welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast. Great to be back with you. Great to be able to bring you another video, especially as we're going to be looking at art during this video. Obviously, the arts generally is something I'm very passionate about, and certainly as a musician, I know that the idea of being able to explore these things, to kind of experience them, to be part of your environment, certainly in the school setting, is an incredibly important thing. So I'm delighted to be able to bring in Katie and Jack to talk about these things. So hi to you both. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hi, good afternoon.
So, Katie, why don't we start off with you? I know it's your kind of school that's been involved in this, and you're a former teacher of Jack's, and he's a pupil of the school. So take us first of all in. Tell us about the school and why and how this sort of came about.
Madeley's a rural school, and I've worked there now for 22 years. And Jack was in one of my first ever GCSE groups. So we're a small department, but we're still close to towns, and we're associated with the potteries. So we've done lots of things like that locally, sort of in the past. And then I've kept in touch with Jack all these years because Jack's gone off and carried on with art, and we've met up now and then. And then it was October 22, we met up and started this discussion about this Curators project.
And I guess it really is a sense of having people in your kind of world that really helps these things, doesn't it? You know, someone who's in a position to help and support. And so did you sort of have an idea of how you wanted it to look before? Or was it just, let's have a conversation and sort of see what develops?
Well, we had a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. I think we sort of had the dream, and that was dependent on funding, which we have achieved. But we did know that if we didn't get the Arts Council funding, that we would have a very different exhibition, and it probably displayed more children's artwork in response to some of Jack's art that he owns. So it was sort of, and the difficult thing I think at first was getting a gallery interested, a local gallery, which Jack, you were the one who went and did them initial visits, weren't you?
I was. So I think the project came about with just kind of a chat between me and Katie about what I do, what I've got, and potentials of working together. So I'm an art dealer. I buy and sell high-end art, and the way I work is I buy the art and then work with lots of other galleries to sell and display the art. So a lot of the art I own is in storage for the majority of the time, which then allows for exciting kind of projects to happen, which is where the idea came from, that rather than the art just being in a storage unit, whether there was the option to do something with it. So that was when kind of Katie and I started to have a chat about whether it was something that she and Madeley would be interested in. And initially it was all really exciting, really the ideas were huge, but then trying to find a gallery space who would take it on, bearing in mind we were quite an unknown quantity, saying that we've got all of this amazing art, but we want to let a group of 15 or so school kids curate the exhibition, select the artworks, do the interpretation, do the whole thing, and we've got no idea what's going to be displayed, no idea what it's going to look like, and it'll all be up to them. It is. I think there was quite a lot of apprehensive museums and curators thinking, no, I can't. We can't possibly do anything like that. So it took a while to get a museum interested, but the Brampton Museum, who are not too far away from the school, were really enthusiastic about the project as well, which helped because I think they saw the potential of what could happen.
Yeah, Katie, you want to jump back in there?
Yeah, what also helped was we've been over the last couple of years at school doing the arts mark, where I have to submit like a statement of commitment to the Arts Council, and the Brampton Museum is an Arts Mark partner. So I sort of laid that on a bit thick. Do you know what I mean? And that finishes this May. I send my statement of impact through this May. So this whole project as well yes, it's been so beneficial to the children and to the school and the local community. But other than that, though, it will hopefully go forward where we will get Arts Mark status at school as well.
So, Jack, I just want to follow on. You sort of, as a previous pupil of the school, I mean, you obviously took it all the way through and have gone into the art world. I mean, I know as a musician, it was the ability to experience music in school that led me into my sort of professional role. What was it that kind of got you hooked, and how did that sort of work into that then becoming your professional life?
I actually think that Katie was a massive influence
Yeah.
on the direction of my life. That she's such an enthusiastic teacher, and when she started, so I think I was in year 9 when Katie started at Madeley, and then she was my teacher throughout my GCSEs, and she was really enthusiastic, and then it's kind of followed me throughout everything I've done for the last 15 years or so, and I think having that encouragement is amazing, and she went far above and beyond what you would normally expect a teacher to do, organising after school workshops and getting artists that she knew to do one-on-one workshops with me to kind of learn about different things that you wouldn't have the opportunity to do at school.
Yeah, and that experience is so key, isn't it? And I think having it in your real world as well, the actual practicality, like I say, real artists, real experiences, going out into your local environment or even further afield to be able to witness that. And I guess that's essentially what I think this project's so exciting, because not only are you sort of going out to school and creating something like that, but also there's an awful lot of sort of autonomy that the children were able to do to be able to put it together. So Katie, why don't you take us a little bit into that, and we'll have a quick look at some of those pictures as well.
I mean, the impact it's had just learning about different careers that are associated, that are all behind the scenes. So that photograph you can see there is Jack in the art room, where he's come in to potentially for us to start looking at some of the artworks, and pupils could make some decisions about what they wanted to be displayed, but also talking about Jack's art career and things like that, and different things. And we had a couple of sessions like those, where Jack came into the art room and talked through everything. We also did quite a lot of trips out. So, and I mean, initially we had a couple of trips down into the Brampton to look at this space, to the gallery space, to see an exhibition being put up, where initially I think it was a Matisse exhibition where some of the pupils had to go hanging for the first time. We met the artist Neil Brownsword there, who had a major exhibition as part of the British Ceramics Biennial, which is where we are there with the red ropes. So I think they went on about 6 outings from school, as well as having guest speakers coming in after the after school class that we run on a Tuesday. So, I mean, when they saw Neil Brownsword down the art gallery, he sort of had his own little model of the gallery and how he curated it, the exhibition. I mean, he's a ceramic artist, but then pupils then did a workshop with him. They met another artist, Ian Mood, which was at the second exhibition, after, like the one before ours, and again did a painting workshop with him. We've had the framer come in and talk to the pupils after school. We've had our PR guy, Lee, come in after school. So, and if the photographer who took the photographs. So pupils, as well as meeting the museum staff and learning about curation, and they've had time in the museum to set up children's activities, all sorts of things, given challenges to get to know that space. And that was before we even picked the pictures and what was going in. So it was a real, as planning goes, it was a big sort of, nightmare's the first word that comes to head, but it isn't. It is, we have a 2-week timetable. So for us to do it properly and keep costs down, I had to give up a lot of my free periods and sort of logistics, should we say. It's trying to get those logistics all right with the small booking minibuses, and our caretakers drove us everywhere, and he's been fantastic, hasn't he, Jack, as well?
He has.
In helping to set up the exhibition. So and Gemma, the other art teacher, of course, has been really involved in it as well.
And it really just goes to show, doesn't it, what's involved to make this happen. It really is going above and beyond everything that kind of that is needed to make it happen.
And I think it's the students have been involved in all of that. Even if they've not been involved directly in organising things, they've been very much aware of what's going on. They've been aware of the funding that we've got, and whether when we were putting the application in, they were aware that it might not happen, so the project might need to change. When we got the funding, they were aware of how much we got and what the budgets were and how it would be spent. They knew that they had a curatorial budget of about £1,000 that they could decide how that would be spent. So if they wanted walls painted in different colours, that would have to come out of their budget. So as well as seeing all of these different associated professionals who've been involved, they've been very much aware of the whole structure that's been behind the project to make sure it's actually happened.
Yeah, and I really love the fact that they're fully inclusive, because I think so often as pupils you get that sense of this is what's happening, this is what you're told's happening. You don't get the whys, you don't get the nitty gritty, like say whether it's budget, whether it's sort of the reality of how these things have been put together. And I think that learning curve is from a business point of view, from the art point of view, from a project based point of view, is a really key thing. And I guess, Katie, that's something which is sort of above and beyond maybe what you were thinking you would do when you were going to become an art teacher.
I suppose so. I sort of will just go along with it. And I've always, I suppose, been an ideas person and how you can do that. And education's changed so much in the last 20 years. From when I started, when Jack was in my classroom, I had a blackboard and a piece of chalk. Today I have a 75-inch Apple TV, you know what I mean? So it's sort of, that's the difference in how things can go. But we've always planned art trips and things like that for GCSE students in the past. I think one of the lovely things about this, the process of it, pupils had to apply to be a part of this. So there was an application process, because by doing it, they will gain their Silver Arts Award, which has a leadership part towards it. So they'll get a qualification out of doing this as well. But it's the different year groups as well. So when they applied, they were in 7, 8, 9 and it's 7, 8, 9 and 10, and of course they sort of have moved up the school now. So I think that's been lovely, and definitely the older students have been really supporting the younger ones. You know, so that you've seen a difference in them, but that's something that they will take on board in future projects that we do.
And in terms of actually the whole project from sort of start to finish, we're going to look at some of the pictures of the installation and the people sort of putting it all together in a moment. But was it very strict in terms of the timing, and then the actual physical, like you said about the minibuses and getting everywhere and that kind of thing, is that actual sort of setup and actually making the exhibition look like it did and be as successful as it is?
I think the setup itself and all of that when we were writing the funding bid, there was lots of decisions made as far as when the exhibition would be. So the museum had kind of put a slot in for us. They put the time in for when the exhibition was going to be installed, when it was going to be taken down. And a knock-on from that was, well, if the exhibition's been installed in February, the art needs to be at the framers a month before, so they have time to frame it. So there was kind of a project timeline almost came out of those dates, which the Young Curators were aware of and worked to, so they had knew when decisions need to be made. But other than that, the project was pretty much left up to them. So the first couple of sessions were me taking artworks into the group so that they could see some of the artworks in person. So they'd seen photographs of all of the artwork, but when you're actually seeing a piece in person, the response that you get is very different. So we tried to take as much art into the school as possible for them to see in the after school classes, which in itself is quite an unusual thing. So we're not talking about low value art here. We're talking about art that's between £5,000 and £30,000 per piece. And the group were kind of having the option to see it being unwrapped. Some of it they unwrapped themselves, and actually being able to see that art in their classroom I think was quite an impactful experience for them to start the project off.
And I'm also quite keen to understand how they worked in those teams. You sort of mentioned the older ones sort of looking after the younger ones there, Katie. Were they sort of put into specific groups, or sort of how organic was that sort of coming together?
Not initially, no, we were all one big group, but as we got closer to the exhibition, we sort of had small groups. I think me and Gemma did have a little bit of say over those groups, but they tended to cross over when we were in the gallery space anyway. There was so we got somebody who would be doing research on the artists to put the blurb up by the paintings. We got some education specialists who were doing sort of supporting if there was any activities to go on into the gallery for other visiting people to the exhibition. We got people deciding on the colours of the walls, but even as we got little teams, we were coming together as a bigger group and making those decisions together. So it wasn't sorted down to just a few, because we were only a team of 14 anyway, so it wasn't a massive group.
And just sort of take us in as well to the sort of, I know it's open now, so that kind of, what was it like when you were then sort of the opening night and all the sort of celebration that goes with that? What was that experience like for you, Jack?
I think for me, I install a lot of exhibitions as part of my job. I go to a lot of private views as part of my job, but I think it was fascinating to see how the young people took ownership over the project. So when you normally go to a museum and you see families there with young kids and teenagers, it's the parents dragging the kids around. Whereas for the private view, it was actually the kids dragging the parents around, telling them what they'd decided, what they'd done, that they'd screwed that piece of art up, that they'd installed this piece, that they'd made certain decisions. So it was nice to see that they'd taken total ownership over the project, and they were excited to share that with their family and the general public.
And tell me a little bit about what sort of the run-off time sort of now. Is it there for other schools to go and visit? Is it there for the general public? Have you sort of tried to sort of use this amazing creative endeavor to kind of, like, say, spread the word maybe to schools or organizations that wouldn't normally necessarily sort of take that trip? Katie, what's your thought on that?
Well, it's being shared throughout because the school's part of an academy trust. So the information about the exhibition has been shared throughout the academy trust. I know in the first week we had, I think it was 3,222 visitors, and different groups. We've also had audio described tours and different things going on. With the museum have sort of handled that. They've had different groups, like a sketching group going and different things like that. They've been handling more that side of thing. But we've got it's still up for another month, so we've got certain little things planned for the Easter holidays and different things like that. So there's been a very good response to so far to the space.
I can imagine. And so, sorry, Jack, I was just a quick follow up there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's although it's an amazing opportunity for the young curators, it's art that is rarely seen in this area of the country as well. So for the general public to see art like this, they'd have to travel to London probably, if not Manchester. So for the general public around here to have this art on their doorstep in their local museum is a rare opportunity. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's getting a lot of visitors as well, because it's the type of thing that people wouldn't normally get the opportunity to see.
Yeah, and what is it about having it in the locality, which is such a precious thing? I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, I live near London, and like I say, I would go in to watch things, or Birmingham or Manchester. How difficult is it, and how creative do you need to be able to, like, say, pull it into your locality, and how important is it?
I think one of the things when you're at school is seeing other people in careers in your local area that you wouldn't normally see. So I think that for most people thinking of art dealers working in the type of art that I do, they would expect that they're all based in London, whereas actually I'm based in rural Shropshire, not far from the school where I went as a teenager. The framers that we've used are specialist high-end framers who work with a lot of conservation organisations and galleries in central London. So, and they're based, again, 20 minutes or so from the school. So it's good, and it's been a great opportunity to share with the kids, but also with the general public, that there are organisations engaging in high arts in their area that otherwise might be kind of hidden businesses that they wouldn't otherwise know about. And I think when you're at school and you actually see somebody and you think that, oh, well, that there's somebody who went to my school who's doing that, who's still living around here, who's able to do that kind of thing, it almost gives you the empowerment to see that that's a possibility without having to think, well, I've got to be in London if that's the type of thing I want to do.
I love that, because it's the sort of thing we talk a lot about on the podcast. And the reason I love doing this so much is the fact that I get to speak to people who've actually done it, because it's so easy to talk about. It would be lovely if, it would be great if this opportunity was available, but there's no funding, there's no opportunity, there's not enough time. And I think both of you have managed to demonstrate that you may well have had to have gone above and beyond the cause to kind of make it happen, but the reward is so incredibly amazing. And Katie, take us into maybe what the pupils have sort of said to you, and what you think they've got out of it is a project which probably they wouldn't have experienced before.
I just think the main thing is seeing them grow in confidence. And I mean, when I think back to the private view, and I handed that I welcomed everybody, but they did all the talking and were speaking, and we got all the bigwigs there from the council and from different things like that, and how proud of what they've achieved. And though that sort of thing. I mean, we've done sort of skills at the start, and we will do them. We will evaluate it again at the end where they think they have done. But it was just so delightful seeing them being approached by different people and them having this confidence, and we've done this, and this is the reason why we've done it, and these were the reasons the choices were made. It's that, I think Jack's already said, ownership is the biggest thing, but. And that we were on Midlands today, the fact of stepping up and being interviewed for the TV, and gosh, you know what I mean, how exciting that was, and for them. So it's just totally been a pleasure, I suppose.
Yeah. And for people watching who are thinking, do you know what, I'd love to do something like that, but I don't know how to take that first step, because the idea of I need to get Arts Council funding, or I need to, like say, find a venue or find a sort of collaborative partners. Where do you start with that, and where did you get some of that sort of expertise and experience?
Right, so every area it used to have bridge organisations. They've sort of lost their Arts Council funding now, but so. When Stoke-on-Trent was going for the city bid for culture a few years ago, we had the Cultural Educationship Partnership. So I used to go along to the meetings, and that's where I met people who run Arts Award. I met the Arts Mark people and the local theatres and different organisations locally, which I've slowly built up over probably the last 6 or 7 years. I'm the faculty leader, so I'm over drama and music as well. So it's not just our projects going on in the other areas too. But that sort of changed more recently, and Arts Marks with Goldsmiths. But there are people there that you can ask. I know up north, it's Liverpool is Curious Minds. Arts Connect still does exist. I don't know about down south. I only sort of know around the northwest and West Midlands. But those organisations are out there, which every school should be able to have access to. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, so that kind of getting out of the school gates, isn't it? That kind of idea that you are an integral part of the community, and vice versa, and they can bring those in. And Jack, tell us what it's like working with a school and being able to bring that expertise in, and sort of how sort of your learning experience, I guess, for you.
Oh, it was very strange going back to the school that I went to, sitting in the same art room that I sat in. Going back kind of 15 years later or so, probably even more now, 20 years later, it was very strange to kind of start off. But I think one of the things professional in any sector, you underestimate your knowledge and what offer that you can give. And I think that you kind of, as you learn things, whether that's going to university or whether that's through actually doing things in your day-to-day life, you kind of get so many more skills than you actually take credit for and think you have. And it's only when you do projects like this and you actually work with people and you show what you've got to offer, it's quite empowering for yourself to actually think, well, actually, yeah, I have come quite a long way from when I was sat there in that school, and I have got a lot to offer. And it's interesting when you start talking to other professionals as well. There is a willingness to offer time, expertise to projects like this, working with schools. So when we spoke to the framers, who I've worked with for a long time now, about the project, they were really excited about it, really willing to be a part of it, quite excited about the idea of coming in and showing a new generation about the art of framing and what can be created and how they operate.
And I guess, Katie, the last thing that anyone was talking about was what grade anyone might get in their exams. It becomes like very much the here and now, and an embracement of what art is and the project and all that together.
I think it's not about grades. They will get a qualification. Silver Arts Awards the equivalent of a GCSE, but it's sort of looking beyond that. It's made them curious. I mean, they've learned a lot about art as well, researching the likes of Damien Hirst and David Hockney and Cause and Tracey, Emin. So they've gained more knowledge now in a wider set of artists and why did they create it. And one of the thoughtful things that they've put around the exhibition is there's a question with all the arts work. So they're posing questions to the viewers as well, making them think a little bit more about what it is hanging on the wall. Yeah, I mean, it's not about grades. It's about experiences, enrichment. That's what I suppose I'm all about. The grades will happen if they're enjoying it, won't they?
Well, I think everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet who's going to be part of education on far as the wider community, because that is sort of integral, I think, to what we all believe and we've all witnessed. And like I said, to be able to share these things as we go through as well. And I think just sort of as we sort of start to finish up, I wanted to sort of take us through a few more of these pictures, and maybe Jack, take us through a little bit of your experience as you were sort of part of this and how you were sort of able to sort of help pull it all together.
Well, it was very interesting to kind of to have some of my preconceptions as an art dealer challenge. So even down to things like framing. For me, if I was getting a piece of art by Damien Hirst framed, I'd have it framed in a white frame, because in the industry generally that's what you do with a Damien Hirst. But they had them framed in black frames because that's what they thought looked best. So things like that they're coming to the art and the exhibition and the idea of it from a totally fresh perspective worked really well. Just kind of opening things up a little bit and broadening ideas out. And I think for me, one of the most interesting parts of the project were the little things that happened. So the group screwed all of the artwork to the wall. They did it all. So some people, it was the first time they were using a level, first time they were learning how to fill holes in walls, first time they were using a screwdriver and drills and things like that. That it was them who were doing it. They were measuring the walls. They were working out where the piece was going. They were deciding where eye level was. So it was giving them the authority to make those decisions. And I think when you pass that authority on to people, it gives them the confidence to make the decisions and to kind of invest more in the project. So it's been interesting to see how they've taken ownership over the whole project. And on the second day of the installation, they were so much more engaged in how to hang the artwork that half of it was already up, but they came on the second day and they were there just getting the level out, getting the tape measure out, and off they were going, starting to do it.
So if we're going to talk about going forward, is it something which you think has an ongoing opportunity, next year, the year after, funding sort of permitting, or is it kind of maybe Katie gives you the idea that maybe the projects work so brilliantly well, it's then just coming up with a new creative version of that? Like I say, if you're involved in drama and music, I guess that the options are wide there for you.
We've already been approached, and there's Art UK is based in Staffordshire, and our pupils, the Young Curators, have done a little film for them about they've been primarily focusing on education, so artworks being photographed from all the museums around the country, and here we've got this big digital sort of, we can go in and curate our own works. So our pupils have gone into that and found all the Hockneys and Shrigley's and Hirsts, and the one thing they've done now is found QR codes to direct them to Art UK. And I think Art UK now want to speak to Jack and things like that. So, you know what I mean? There's already things that have come about that from there. I think as far as building links with the museum and how that in conjunction, it'd be lovely moving forward, I suppose, now to show off what our children can do, you know what I mean? And it's sort of, let's have that space to show off Madeley's artwork, and there's all sorts of things. I mean, I've got sort of good connections with the Potteries Museum and all the local establishments too, and it has put us on the map, I suppose. They've heard of Madeley now, and you know what I mean. And we're starting to get approached for different things. We're even doing things with the National Theatre and things like that. Looking forward, I've already got things planned for the next 12 months. So it's just watch this space.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And Jack, from your point of view, like I say, you know, this isn't an integral part of what you do day to day, is your job. Are you feeling like maybe there could be more of these sorts of things coming in, or just sort of wait and see, like see where the opportunities come from what's happened already?
Yeah, I think one of when we did the Arts Council bid, and the whole project wouldn't have happened without the funding from the Arts Council. But when we did the Arts Council bid, one of the things that we were saying to them, that it's a rare project that's bringing together a commercial art dealer, a public museum, and a secondary high school. It's quite rare to see those organisations coming together to pull off a public project, and I think it shows that irrelevant of what your sector is, that there are things that you can do to collaborate with education institutions and create some amazing projects. So I think there's definitely options out there for future exhibitions and projects. I mean, my collection is turning over it ticks over the new artworks coming in, so there's always fresh art to go on display, and I think it shows that there's an appetite for this type of project. That the school have been overly enthusiastic about doing the project. The head teacher has been really kind of keen to give Katie and Gemma, the other art teacher, to the kind of the freedom to go ahead and do the project. And the museum have been great to kind of just open their doors so freely. And I think that there's a huge amount that can be taken from that a little bit of freedom, and that can create something quite amazing.
Yeah, I think for me, that idea that it's supported from the top, and like I say, just given the professionalism and the freedom to let people go and do what they can do and be creative within themselves, and that just filters then down through the rest of the school and the pupil and everyone that's involved with these things, and it's a fantastic thing to witness. And just one final thing from each of you, if there was sort of one takeaway that maybe you've learned from doing this, what would that be? Katie, would you like to go first?
Oh gosh, I don't know. The funding side of things and managing that budget within an establishment is not as straightforward as perhaps you would think it would be. So there was a lot to learn. I didn't anticipate or expect that, I suppose. But the actual meat and bones of it and the time with the students, and it's just been, because we meet every week, every Tuesday, and how they've gelled and working with that team, and just hopefully raising some aspirations, and who knows where they will go on. You know what I mean? I have told them in 20 years I won't be there, though. So don't come back with a project like Jack's done.
Jack's a one-off coming back. Yeah. For that. Yeah. And Jack, what's your takeaway?
I think my biggest takeaway is, for me personally, I underestimate what I've got. And for me, I spend my every day looking at art, every day kind of talking to people about art, buying and selling pieces, and it becomes the everyday for me. And when you actually look at a project like this, where you're taking it into schools, you're sharing it with the general public, it's not a normal thing for people to engage with this type of high-end art, and it's nice to be able to kind of share my art and the appreciation for art, and to try to kind of make people aware that there is high level things going on in their area.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So
Okay.
a very big thank you from me for coming on and sharing this, but I think from everybody, thank you so much for your enthusiasm and actually for doing it, and like I say, being a guiding light to those people who might want to do it in the future, or find that it is possible within the current framework of schools, and working in the community and just fostering all those friendships that you've shared so brilliantly. So thank you so much indeed. I really do appreciate it. For those of you watching, we are going to have links and everything in the description below, so you can find out the websites and all the details of that. It's still running through until April, I believe. Is that right, Katie?
April the 14th.
Fantastic. So people can still find out more, and if you're in the vicinity, be able to go in and see some of that in real life, as they say. So yeah, thank you so much indeed, both of you. And I really look forward to maybe keeping in touch and finding out the projects going forward.
Okay, thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and thank you so much for being part of the Education on Fire community. Links and details of today's podcast are in the description, and if you would like to support the show with a small donation, that's a wonderful way to help me bring you more creative and inspiring learning. Please visit educationonfire.com/support, and remember, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.